What's up, everybody? It's your boy Cal, and recently I've been doing, the normal YouTube thing, planning videos, making videos, editing and stuff. And as I was doing so, I came across one of the Power Ranger videos I had edited, and it had me thinking about all the people we have seen in Power Rangers, whether they have been Rangers, mentors, allies, enemies, whatever. And I realized within certain seasons of the franchise, within certain books, games, or whatever, there has been mentions or allusions to the fact that there are certain people, certain characters who should have been Rangers or could have been Rangers. And this is what I mean. Take Power Rangers RPM, for instance. If you were to take this concept by starting with the people who should have been Rangers at first, let's look at characters like DiSNEY 7. We all know that within Power Rangers RPM, there was a plan by Venjax for Chennai 7 to infiltrate the Rangers by testing out her candidacy for the Operator Green series, right? She was going to test to see if she was physically capable, mentally capable, and overall perfect fit to be the Green Ranger. Because, with her being an android or whatever you want to call it, she was not only biologically fit, but she was the one who would pass off the best physically and more. And if she was accepted, then she could, get information on the inside, play double agent, try to corrupt the system and all of that. And we all know that the plan was actually working. She was going to be the new Operator Green Ranger until Ziggy ended up bonding with the Green Ranger series. That would be an example of people who should have been the Rangers if things worked out a little differently. Now, if you want to look at the people who could have been Rangers, that one's a little bit more complex, but also a little bit more easier to define. Because if you want to look at any series who actually tried to flesh out the history of that particular Ranger team, you can start easily with the Mighty Morphin team. You can easily think about it where you're like, wait a minute. Was Zordon a Ranger? Was there a previous Ranger team before us? Come to find out, we all know in the comics there were, in the movie he was, but if you want to look at it from another type of team, we know that Maverick wasn't the only protector who bonded with the Wild Force Zords before our current Wild Force team of Rangers, in that there were possibly other people who protected the Animarium and things. Just like the Grid Battle Force company that we were introduced to within the Beast Morpher season, we know that there had to be tests and trials that were constantly given to people in certain selected candidates to see if they were adept and capable of being infused with the power of the Morphin Grid in order for them to become Power Rangers, if they were worthy, if they were spiritually capable, mentally capable, and all of that. So, with that being said, we know that there are people who could have been Rangers. Like, we could take it in a way where, sure, we know that Roxy and Blaze were supposed to be the first Rangers. But what if something happened to the original Rangers and Roxy and Blaze were their replacements, just like Devin and Zoe replaced them? Or what if the commander ended up being a Ranger before, or she was part of some type of program like the Prometheus program within the comics and stuff like that. So that's the type of concept that we are going to be playing with today. And there's a few reasons why I chose this concept in particular. Because you guys know the recruitment season videos are based off of, using characters that we really enjoy and that we know a great deal about, but it's also about the characters that could have been seen as interesting to us, but we really didn't see much of them, the characters that are underutilized. So it's a chance for us to bring more of a spotlight to them. Because once I looked at this particular idea, I realized that there are a lot of characters that if we were to touch bases on them and dive deeper into their history and their origins and stuff, no matter if they are seen as a mentor or a teacher or something within the current continuity that they are in, that if we were to touch on them, it would explain a lot of the Power Ranger lore that we as fans have felt has been missing. It would explain a lot more. It would expand the universe, answer more questions, and just give us more of a consolidated mythos to the world. So that's what we're going to do today. And as I said before, while there are many characters within the Power Ranger universe throughout the many different seasons who this could have been alluded to, I'm realized it mostly within the Disney era of the show. So all the characters we're only pulling from today are going to be based within the Disney era. So we're not going to choose anybody from like Mighty Morphin or Samurai or whatever. We're only going to be looking at the Disney era of the show, which ranges from Ninja Storm all the way to RPM. And in regards to this video, this is going to be just like any other type of recruiting we do based on the Power Rangers universe, except for a few different things. We're still only going to be doing 5 characters, but usually when it comes to our Power Rangers recruitment, we stick to a particular color. We try not to do similar themes or whatever. We're not really going to be doing that per se. We're just going to be looking at characters who, like I said, I'm interested in and I feel like could have really expanded the lore and looking at moments and choosing characters who definitely could have been Rangers while still sticking to the 5-member format, if that makes sense. And at the end of the video, after I'm finally done choosing my team, I'll try to give a little bit more of an expansion, like give you a what if story arc scenario or what if TV series or story type of plot where this could have been like a team that they could have done within the TV show, especially since, now that we have the comics and we're supposed to be getting a reboot, who knows? Maybe some of these characters will show up again or whatever. It will look like we're really doing some real expansion, having a little bit of fun with it. So that's what we're going to do. And with that being said, we're going to get right into the video. In the first team we're going to look at, we're going to try to go in order for this team. Right? We're going to try to go in order from the seasons that appeared within the Disney era. And the first Disney era Power Ranger show we were given was Ninja Storm. Now, outside Ninja Storm, outside of the 3 Rangers, Shane, Dustin, and Tori, along with Thunder Rangers, Blake and Hunter, we had Cameron Watanabe. And once we had the episode where Cameron went to go get his powers, we were given scenes or an episode where back in the past, we saw, our current day sensei, whose name was actually Kanai. We saw what he was like as a student. We saw his ranking and everything. And we also saw how Cameron's mom ended up joining the Ninja Academy as the first female student. And while I can't remember what kind of ranking she had, like what kind of color uniform she had, we also know that she also had the Samurai amulet. So what if we chose those 2 members as our first 2 candidates for members who could have been Rangers back in the past? Which would explain a lot, especially when it comes to Sensei Kanoi. Because when it came to Kanai in the past, we were given certain things like we know that he was the top combatant within the academy. But there were mentions of how he was always late and stuff for his training, just like he now in current continuity is always on Dustin, Shane, and Tori. We know that apparently he was like that as well. So sure, he was good at combat, but what other parts of his ninja training were not as great as his other ones? Where did he slack? Where did he succeed? How did he go from being a student to a sensei? What lessons and teachings and code did he take from his time as a student, and how did he implement them and carry them on into his teaching methods and more when he became a sensei, when he took over the Ninja Academy, what things did he change as far as the Ninja Academy goes, things like that. We also know that now in current continuity, he has some type of mental capabilities. So is that something that we could see throughout just certain people? Is there a particular set of training he went through? Or is that something that most ninjas can do? Or just the air type of ninjas? Things like that. And then when it comes to his wife, Cam's mom, aka Miko, like I said, we didn't see exactly what type of ranking she was, but we know that, the amulet and the samurai training was passed down to her family, that she was the first female accepted into the academy. So what if with her, she was the one who, you know, dictated different ninja schools being opened, where some taught only samurai training, or where some taught both? Or what if she was inspiration for an opposing type of warrior school, like where we have ninja schools, we also have those of the samurai training schools? Or what if we find out a history or some part of that story where there was a war or a differation or some type of conflict that divided the two? Or the opposite, what if there was an allegiance that formed the two where they had to come together? Or wouldn't it be interesting to see that she was one of the first or one of the most important females within Ranger history? Or, for that matter, seeing that she's technically a samurai ranger, what if we find out that she somehow connected to the modern day samurai ranger team that we know of? Or she has something to do with building up the samurai ranger legacy as it is told to us within the samurai rangers era in the future. So that's something we could see. But on another front, we all know that when it came to that episode, we found out that Lothor's real name was Kia, and he's the brother of Kanoi, right? And eventually, within the current team continuity, he has finally made his way back to the galaxy to take over. But logically, technically, usually, pragmatically, we can assume he's not the first villain that the ninjas had to deal with, right? And I'm not talking about like the ninjas of Shane, Dustin, Tori, and all of them. I'm talking about within the world in general, right? Because if you want to think about it, people usually don't open a ninja school just for the fun of it. I mean, sure, people may go through ninja training to like discipline their minds or their body, their spirits or whatever. But traditionally and usually, if you're going to have multiple ninja schools and you're going to have a big academy full of people with all these different roles and ranks and stuff, 9 times out of 10 is to protect the world from something. So, what if more than likely this isn't even a what if, but what if Kanoi and Miko were chosen as two of the first guardians or two of the first protectors to protect the world from whatever threat that appeared, which will make more sense. So when it comes to our team, they will be the first two people who we will grab to put on this pseudo team of Rangers from the past. And like I said, as you can see, like I said, this isn't just like me just using fanfare or whatever. This is me using fanfare, but using it logically based on the evidence and stuff that we were given throughout the Power Ranger shows. And when it comes to this team, of course, that would mean making Miko a Green Ranger, which is fine. Have we ever had a female? Yes, we have had a female Green Ranger. But it'll make Miko a Green Ranger. It will make Kanoi the Red Ranger. And I don't want to say we just making him the Red Ranger, just make him Red Ranger. But we're gonna make him a Red Ranger 1 because technically that's what his uniform assimilates. Seems that it seemed like based on his uniform, he was an air student, right? And according to what we know through Shane in current continuity, the air student became the air ninja and the leader of the team, right? So I don't want to say let's stick to the tropes of making the red guy the leader. But when it comes to like this particular team, like the Ninja Storm section of the video, I could see him being one, not only because he was a great combatant, but he did seem very disciplined. Like I said, though it was mentioned that he was lacking in like time management or whatever, he did seem very disciplined and he was a good combatant, which is most likely who you would choose within a ninja ranking to be your leader. And as far as the color affiliation goes, keeping him red, that's not only a Power Ranger trope, that's a trope that we see throughout all forms of fiction and comic book media when it comes to like elemental connectings. We know that red is usually connected to blood, death, or if you want to be sensible and calm about it, is usually connected to the element of air. And for Miko, I know a lot of y'all might be saying, no, 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 the amulet didn't activate until Cam went back in time. Look, y'all know awful about time travel. Because now it's like, okay, so the amulet never activated until he went back in time? Or did he make it activate? Like, what's going on? So even though I don't want to go into the whole time travel business, we're not even going to do that. We're just going to say, hey, the amulet activated, passed down to generation to generation, or somehow she activated it. Or, hey, what if she was the first Green Ranger who was a Samurai Ranger who didn't have no samurai powers? Or whatever, and she just had like a uniform and the training and had access to some other power. There, simple enough. So with that being said, like I said, Kanai and Mika will be the first two people we are choosing for the pseudo team of Rangers from the past. Now, as I said in the beginning of the video when we first started, if we are to stick to the order of how these shows were presented to us within the Disney era, then that would mean that technically the next show to look at would be Power Rangers Dino Thunder. But within this show, there's not really any mentions or allusions to anybody who could have been a Ranger in the past. I mean, we all know that Tommy Oliver was in there, but he was a Ranger in the past, and he was a Ranger in the show. And when it comes to my own narrative devices, as far as the rules go, seeing that I already used Tommy in another recruitment season video, it really wouldn't make sense to use him in this particular video for any other reasons or because of any other reasons that I just stated. However, there is maybe a person or two who I could see is using in a way that they would have been Rangers or they should have or possibly could have ended up being Rangers if things went a little differently. And we might do a video on that later on down the line somewhere. But as of right now, like I said, this particular video is about the people and members within the universe who definitely could have been Rangers in the past due to the evidence we were given. So we're going to skip Dino Thunder. And we're going to move on to the next show, which was Power Rangers SPD. And for Power Rangers SPD, the person we are going to choose for this, there's actually quite a few people, I think. But the most prominent one and the one that I could think of is Super Commander Birdie. And we're going to put him on the team as well. Now, if you want to be logical, while there is no solidified proof of this outside of the information I'm about to give you, if you want to be logical, we know that Power Rangers Dino Thunder took place in what, 2006, 2007? Not only as a show that was given to us, but within their world, within their canon, we know that the year that the team was experiencing was 2006, 2007. And when it comes to Power Rangers SPD, we know that that world took place within the year of 2025. And it was only 2007, 2008 to us when the show premiered. Now, according to that logic, we could assume, based off of just common sense and the shows around that era, we know that there was still probably present day Power Rangers. Because even though the show took place within the year of 2025, the show, like I said, was given to us in the year 2007, 2008. And right after that, we had what? Mystic Force. So we know that there is still present day Rangers. But if you want to look at it as a logical standpoint for that continuity, for the show to take place in 2025, where it's explained to us that, in the year 2025, aliens and humans live together on Earth. There's a society, they're welcoming all this. We could assume logically and conceptually that between the years of 2006 and 2007, where Donald Thunder took place, in the year 2025, where it said that, Power Rangers SPD took place, there had to be some type of build up for the aliens to be integrated into the world. There had to be those years where they either invited the aliens or aliens started to conquer. There had to be that era where they were feared or where there was probably war and violence. There had to be the political structuring, making the laws and the rules for the aliens. Then there had to be that testing period. Then after the testing period, came the period where they were finally integrated. But then you probably had to make the era where, okay, something's obviously happening with these aliens. They can all be trusted. We need to form some type of government, political, law enforcement thing to govern everything. And that's where SPD came along. And as SPD come along, you can't just say, oh, Superintendent Birdie was here, Commander Kruger was here, here's the squads and stuff. No, there had to be structuring and there had to be some type of plan and stuff in place where you can figure out what's the best way for this, unit to work and everything. So with that being said, what if Birdie was one of those people who were brought into the ranks? Like, what if he was one of those people who were either a refugee on Earth, or what if he was invited, or whatever the case may be, or what if he was recommended and he got brought into the academy? Now, of course, like I said, you can have those people where you hire them for certain areas. Like, you could probably say the medical staff or the scientific staff was hired. But when it comes to like the commanders and stuff, you need not only resume, but you need experience. And we all know, based off of certain dialogue and scenes that we have seen, that before our current A squad and B squad, there were other squads and other Ranger teams. While we don't know about those teams in particular, we know that like Jack's parents, Sky's parents, etc., not only were they at SPD when they were younger, but we know that Sky's dad was an SPD Ranger, and they had different uniforms. And while I have my own theories and thoughts about how their uniforms look very similar to the Time Force uniforms, which could probably tie into this somehow. We're not getting into all that. But what if, Birdie or Commander Kruger, what if they was a part of one of the teams that their parents were on or something? And then, they had to go through training. And then it's just like we see at the end of the SPD show where one of them left or got promoted. Then, Kruger got promoted to his position, and while Kruger is now commander, the commander before him was Birdie and all of that. It will also explain why Birdie thinks the way he does or acts the way he does or why he seems so disciplined. What if there's a story where he's jaded or where he's gone through tough times and it's changed his perspective and everything. And while I wouldn't make him a color, we could assume that if he was based off of his personality, compared to the personalities in the ranking of the colors that we see within the current continuity, I would definitely say I see him more as a blue ranger, but he could also be a red ranger. But instead of that, why not just make him like an off color ranger, like Kruger was, the Shadow Ranger? But since that we don't know if the Shadow Ranger is like a new ranger altogether within that continuity, why not just give him, like I said, an off color type of original uniform? And like I said, then we can explain, hey, Birdie was one of the ones who was integral in playing a major part in the building of SPD, the political founding of Earth being welcoming to all aliens, how he structured SPD now. We can see the difference in how SPD was back then, their training, how their rankings went, their crew rankings, their crew fighting skills, and more. So we're going to put Birdie up here as well. And like I said, we're not going to choose a member to lead this actual pseudo team yet. But you know what? I'm not even going to go into all that. We're not choosing a leader yet. You'll see what I'm going to do at the end if I decide to actually, expand on this by coming up with different scenarios for story arcs and plot details for a show or a book, like I said I would in the beginning of the video. So with three of our members taken care of, obviously that means we will only have two other members to put on this team. And if we were to keep to the order, that would mean that Power Rangers Mystic Force will be next. Then after that, we would take care of Operation Overdrive, then Jungle Fury, then RPM. However, I'm gonna get this out the way right now. We're not gonna do anybody from RPM or Operation Overdrive, simply because of the fact that we don't particularly see any episodes or allusions to anybody who could have been a Ranger back in the day throughout those TV shows. Again, we have mentions of people who probably would have ended up being the Rangers, but like I said, it's not the focus of today's video. Same thing for Mystic Force. While we have people who we definitely know were definitely Rangers in the past, some of them like Liambo and Daggeron, we can't use because I already used them within other recruitment videos for other Power Ranger based teams. And Udana, I I really didn't care for Udana as a Ranger, so I plan to use Udana somewhere else. And then I guess like the only other person I could think of would be like the Mystic Snow Prince, which again I can use him as a support staff member, or I could put him on another team. So with those three shows out of the way, and now it's taking care of the other three shows already, that means the only other show we will have to deal with is Jungle Fury. So obviously that's where our other two members are going to come from. And those members are going to be Master Rilla and Master Gwen. Now, for those who can't remember or who do not know who those two characters are, that's fair because Master Rilla, Master Gwen, they only appeared within like what, one or two episodes. And those episodes were the finale and the episode where RJ was taken hostage by Daishi, and Casey, Theo, and Lily had to go back and find new masters to find a way to help him. There was actually three masters. There was Master Rilla, of course, who ended up being the master who gave Casey the gorilla spirit. There was Master Gwen, who gave Lily the access to the penguin spirit. And then there's Master Lope, who gave Theo access to his animal spirit. Again, I have questions about how the whole giving access to other people's animal spirits affects a person and everything, but that's another discussion for another day. But when it comes to Master Lope, we're not going to use him for a few reasons. One, if you haven't watched any of my other Power Ranger recruitment based type of videos, you would know that when it came to the Masters of Power Rangers Jungle Fury, there were technically only 7 established Masters on the side of the Order of the Claw throughout the season, way before Theo, Lily, and Casey became Masters. And out of all of the 7, we already used 2 of them in other recruitment videos. One of them I'm going to use on another team. One of them, I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to use him or not yet. And no matter what I decide to do with him, it wouldn't matter for this video anyway because he was a ranger within current continuity. One of them I did not care for. 2 of them, as we have said, are going to be Master Rilla and Master Gwen, which only leaves one more Master unaccounted for, and that's Master Lope. So if you want to talk about Master Lope specifically, we're not going to use Master Lope on this team because, honestly, Master Lope was one of those people who I really wasn't feeling as a master. Like when I said earlier that there were other masters I weren't feeling, I was talking about like how I wasn't really feeling the personality or the teaching styles of Master Finn or even Master Fant. But when it comes to Master Lope, he really didn't give me a presence that screamed Kung Fu Master or who screamed, you know, the master or the teacher of a combatant. And plus, let's really think about it. Like, outside of Batroc the Leaper from Marvel or Toad from the Brotherhood, who are some characters who are really using mainly their lower bottom half in combat? Like, really, let's think about it. Because when you look at Power Rangers, sure, they do flips and stuff. They use, like, jujitsu kicks and Aikido kicks and all that. But most of the time, when you see a Power Ranger fighting, they are worried about upper jabs, uppercuts, and overall just using their upper body. So, while having the spirit of the antelope may be an interesting and new choice that the Power Ranger franchise has never touched on before, and while you may be able to do certain things with that, if you wanted to look at it from a fighting style standpoint, I don't think it's useful, seeing how that, like I said, within the Power Rangers universe, the Rangers usually use most of their upper body. And we see that even in Jungle Fury itself, when Theo gets access to Methylope's spirit, he's still using mostly his Jaguar technique, which is a lot of the upper body, chest guard and fist and everything. So outside of like a very select set of individuals and scenarios, I don't see how the spirit of the antelope would be useful, especially knowing that when it comes to the spirit animals, they translated most of how the animals usually walk in life, talk and go through life in general, and translated that into a fighting style. That is a fighting style I really don't see being as versatile as they think it may have been. But aside from that, like I said, he really didn't give me any type of master type of vibe. But like I really wasn't feeling him. Like everybody else exuded some type of energy that I was able to pick up or that I was able to like see something within them. But when it came to Master Lope, I wasn't really feeling him. I really didn't get anything from him. So while the others may have felt like actual masters, Master Lope, he seemed more like a council member who's more of a advice giver, more of a spokesperson. But as far as Master Rilla goes and Master Gwen, Master Rilla, he just looks like a karate master. He looks like an old time master. I'm not a big Star Wars fan. I haven't watched it before, but I've seen pictures. He looks like a Obi-Wan Kenobi type of nigga. And when it comes to Master Gwen, I know a lot of y'all probably just think, oh, he's just choosing Master Gwen because she was a female. And he has this thing about putting females in more of an area where they can shine more or where they just not succumb to being a love interest or whatever. Yes and no. One, the idea of a female master martial artist is so unique to me. But Master Gwen, she gave me, if Master Rilla was a master, I could see him being like a master who taught discipline within brute force. And his coming up story playing out something similar to that of Jared's from Power Rangers Jungle Fury, where he has to learn how to reel in his anger or reel in the times where he's aggressive. You know, learning that overall power isn't everything, brute force isn't everything. Sometimes it's better to think and fight with your head rather than your muscle. Well, I could see Master Gwen's story being more of a story where, you know, people may underestimate her. And because of that, she's constantly doing things overly trying to prove herself, where it may seem like she may be insecure or she may be coming off more aggressive than she usually is because people are always doubting her or people are always thinking that she is weak. Because if you really want to think about it, if you look at Master Gwen, she seems like the type of master now who is more of the master who deals with the mental, emotional, and spiritual aspects of a person, of the teaching world, right? And because of her having the power over the penguin, people may not take that all that seriously because one, that's never really been heard of before. So it might be a rare animal spirit. And people see penguins as one of the weakest birds or one of the weakest type of animals. So I could see her story playing out something like Katara from Avatar Last Airbender when she wanted to first learn waterbending and she was denied. And just like Miko, she could be the first kung fu female student. She can explain why there's not really a lot of females within Jungle Fury. Or maybe she can go through some kind of arc where she comes to terms with who she is and she learns to accept exactly the type of person she is. And she's like, well, maybe there's nothing wrong with being timid like everybody says I am. Just because I'm soft hearted doesn't mean I'm weak. And in her weakness, she learns that, you know, there's nothing wrong with being calm. There's nothing wrong with being the peaceful person. And that there's strength in it. There's sometimes a lot of situations where, you know, you don't need the muscle. Sometimes you need diplomacy. Sometimes you don't need diplomacy. Sometimes you need a spiritual anchor, emotional care. And she comes to terms with that. And then eventually, maybe like during the Beast Wars, she learns that she got to toughen up a little bit. That she's lost a lot of people and everything. And then she toughens up because she's like, I can't let this happen no more. I gotta find the perfect times to where I am peaceful, but the perfect times where I can wild out. But while we didn't get like any clear allusions to like connect them to being a ranger, that was like seeing the upper rankings and trainings that we could have drawn back to from SPD or Power Rangers Ninja Storm. We do know that, again, there was a war previously within the Power Rangers universe when it came to the Pai Schwa school and the Order of the Claw, who had to fight Daishi and the Beast Warriors of the past. And even though it is clearly stated that, you know, access to the morphing grid was only given to Casey and Theo and Lily for the first time? What if there was some type of other access to power that made them warriors or guardians? Like, what if they were two of the first guardians? Um, Maybe not rangers in the usual sense, like we see Casey, Theo, and Lily become, but in another type of way. Because if there's anything that we have learned recently within the last few years of the canonized show or within the comics, is that when it comes to the morphing grid, the morphing masters have granted different forms of access in different forms of power for people to channel to the point in where they would have some type of power given to them. So, with that being said, what if Master Rilla and Master Gwen had access to one of those points during the Beast Wars? Or what if they were like Jared, who was able to protect and guard using like a spirit warrior armor type of thing or whatever? So we're going to use them as well. And as far as like if we gave them ranger access, I wanted to make them a different color, make maybe a white or black or whatever. But we're just going to stick to what we have seen within the Power Rangers Jungle Fury show. We know that when Casey gets access to Master Rilla's Gorilla Spirit, it's a red and black type of Zord he uses. Same thing for Master Gwen, permitting Lily to use her Penguin Spirit. We know that this penguin comes out as a yellow white type of configuration for the Zord. So we're just going to keep them within those color ranges. And I know that means we have two red rangers so far. But like I said, you will see exactly what I'm about to do. Honestly, I thought about putting everybody all on one team, like have them all go to like one training academy, one school and everything. But then I realized that that wouldn't really work, seeing as how like I said with SPD, they didn't get the alien human integration until 2020 or whatever. So when Birdie came up, that would have been seen more within the early to mid 21st century. And then when it comes to the first Beast War, in the time we see Kanai and Miko at the Ninja Academy as students, that probably didn't happen for what years earlier, which would put them in the century before Birdie. So time wise, if you want to sync it like that, it doesn't really work. But a way that it could be done is like, seeing that how SPD is more of a sci-fi type of Power Ranger show, and there was a lot of space travel and time travel. Ugh. Y'all know how I feel about time travel. We can make it like a story where Birdie, as part of his training or something, goes back through time to figure out like all the ways and how each and every single different cooperation, you know, forms its logistics, forms its training, forms its, rankings and everything, for him to find the best way to govern the SPD Academy, or for him to learn the ways of human society and everything. And along the way, he picks up members, or he, aligns himself with members of the Rangers of the past, being Kanai, Mika, Rilla, and Gwen or whatever. And along the way, they help each other. And then maybe, who knows, like the wars end up clashing. Like there's a war that end up clashing with Daishi, or Daishi and whoever the war or the first time enemy of the Ninja Academy were joined together. We know in the past ninjas have some type of ninjetti type of training. What if they really tried to, you know, distance themselves from that type of training, or learn more about the ninjetti and the animal spirits. So there was a time where all the schools were combined or something like that. And then you'll have this rivalry between Rilla and Kanai where they seem like brothers, and Kanai is judging everybody now based off how uh Luthor or Kia was acting, or he's got to learn how to not be bitter and everything, stuff like that. And while those are ideas for a story for the entire team as a whole, if you want to look at individualized arcs or stories for like individualized characters, if they were to get like a solo comic or a solo series for a TV show, or you want to bring their stories together in one book, I guess like for Kanai, you could make him the disciplined warrior who is grounded in honor and tradition, but like he provides tactical discipline. But when it comes to the others, like Rilla, he respects him, but may butt heads because it's another Red Ranger, or he may find Birdie reliable, but unconventional at the same time. And for the girls, he may treat one with warmth and comfort, most likely being Miko, and he may treat the other, who is Gwen, he may see her as like eccentric and stuff. But if you wanted to go to like Master Rilla, pretty much the same thing. You see him as the powerhouse, and because he's another Red Ranger, he may butt heads with Kanai, and may be the angry one who is very similar or reminds Kanai of his brother before he was removed. So Kanai may not trust him and stuff. Um, Stuff like that. Just the girls being the heart of the team. Birdie being you know on his guard because he's the only one not from this planet. Being the alien, he may be on his guard, or he may feel insecure or inferior, or he may feel superior to the others. Like, I'm an alien, we're centuries or decades more advanced than you guys are. How dare you talk to me and stuff like that. And then you just like have stories where they butt heads, or they butt heads and they learn how to find strengths within each other's different areas and stuff like that. So essentially, if you want to do like an entirely complete story, it could be more of a then versus now story. We see them back then, like we see Kanai, he was fiercely disciplined and rule bound, and he always carried the weight of family honor, always feeling the need to be the perfect student. But now he's more of a stoic, calm, and precise mentor. He's more of a sensei who's hunted by regrets and stuff. When it comes to Rilla, back then he might have been seen as hot-headed and the one who relied on the strength that he has and instinct, and never cared much about titles, but he was always ready to defend his friends and his family. And now when you look at him, he's, still the muscle of the group, but he's tempered. He's learned that, strength is not always the answer. Sometimes you need to, scout the scene, listen, plan ahead, figure out what's the best route and everything. And believes that the power should only be used to uplift others instead of glorifying himself. Things like that. And like, you can continue to do this with the other three as well. Um, Miko, she may be seen, or yeah, Miko may be seen now as empathetic and wise, but back then she could have been seen as fierce and passionate, spiritually gifted, but always caught between her desires and her duty. And you can see her story involved into that, and you can understand now why you would rather have had Cam stay away from battle due to the things that she's learned, due to the things she's been through and everything. Gwen, you know, she may have been seen as eccentric, like I said, and underestimated, but now she's quirky and sometimes cryptic. Sometimes now she believes order may weaken adaptability. And with Birdie, like I said, Birdie is the one you can do the most with because, like I said, he's an alien. So now he may be seen as a military commander with decades of service and experience. But, back then he always had to prove himself. And while others may have been more idealistic, he may have been more of a militaristic and pragmatic person due to how he was raised or due to his culture and his beliefs and how he feels like it's more efficient for him to be more structured on a new planet where he has to adapt to the rules and everything. Stuff like that. And then eventually, if you want to expand the story, you go through those individualized arcs and see them starting to form the official unit on the days when they were students, which eventually leads to a crisis that may strike like the Great Wars or the Beast Wars or whatever. And then eventually now in the present, they're like mentors and stuff. The old team comes together and while they may not have been chosen as rangers during the Great War or whatever, they were still able to be protectors and they figured out like the different paths they wanted to go through were those of guardians, those of protectors, those of being teachers and stuff to eventually train the up and coming to basically do better than them, to be better than them, to teach them how to avoid the mistakes that they made, stuff like that. Like I said, I could go more into it, but it's like it would really be like trying to find the gray area of where it will work to the point where it wouldn't be redundant or where it wouldn't, be sloppy due to the whole time placement thing. But that's what it is. So like I said, you guys, those are our 5 different members. And when it comes to this team, like I said, okay, so we all know that Power Rangers, when it comes to like their anniversary episodes, they do a lot of crossovers. One of the crossovers for the Disney era was Once and Always, which people call the Disney era crossover because it appeared in Operational Drive, and you basically had a ranger from each of the Disney era shows pop up, including Adam from the Zordon era. I think if you want to do that, you might as well have waited for Jungle Fury to appear or RPM. I can understand why RPM was in it because RPM is a whole different dimension. But you should have waited at least until Jungle Fury. But that's neither here nor there. But seeing how this is the once and always a ranger method for the old regime of the Disney era, this video is going to be posted in dedication to the Once and Always show. So it's going to be posted around that time area of June or July, around that date or around the time that the original episode of Once and Always appeared. But that being said, you guys know what it is. Let me know how you feel about this team. What are some story arcs you could have went through? If you want me to do like a story arc video, I will. Let's sit down and get out a story. But right now, like I said, I just don't see like it's necessary, since that I gave you at least individualized story arcs for each character. But who was your favorite character amongst these people? Who are some other characters within the franchise who you think could have been arranged in the past, whether it had been the Disney era or more? And with that being said, you guys know what it is. I'm going to catch you guys later. Deuces.